Film Recapped here. Today I'm gonna explain a horror thriller movie called Saw 2. Watch out, spoilers ahead. Saw 2 begins with Michael Mark's awakening with a spike-filled mask locked around his neck. A videotape left by Jigsaw informs the informant that to unlock the device, he must cut into his own eye to get to the key. A timer begins a countdown of 60 seconds, and Michael finds the scalpel. He tries a few times but cannot bring himself to cut into his eye to get the key. When the timer reaches 0, the mask closes, killing him. Then we see Detective Erik Matthews let out his son, Daniel, who was detained by a security officer. On their way home, they engaged in an argument. In a fit of rage, Erik angrily yelled at him to go away, which Daniel subsequent. We see several scenes where Erik tries to contact his son Daniel but he can't. Shortly thereafter, Detective Allison Carey is assigned to investigate Michael's murder. While at the scene, she finds a message from her former partner Detective Erik Matthews and calls him. Erik quickly manages to locate Jigsaw's hideout at the abandoned Wilson Steel plant and therefore decides to join Carey and Sergeant Daniel Rigg as they raid the plant with a SWAT team. Upon entering the steel plant, some officers fall in Jigsaw's trap and they get electrocuted. Continuing on their mission, they find the killer, John Kramer, who is severely weakened by his cancer disease. However, as the officers are about to arrest him, John reveals that he has already planned to be found by them and shows them a set of surveillance monitors. On these monitors, Erik and the others witness 8 people, including Daniel Matthews, Erik's son, and Amanda Young, the only known survivor of one of John's games, who are all trapped inside a big house. While being trapped there, they breathe in a deadly nerve agent and have 2 hours to find syringes with the antidote, which are hidden all around the house. John assures Erik that he will see his son again in a safe and secure state if he agrees to talk with him alone until the 2 hours are over. Pressured by Carey, Erik reluctantly agrees to John's ultimatum in order to buy time for the police tech team to arrive and track the signal from the video feed. In the house where the victims are, Amanda wakes up and after realizing that she has been kidnapped by Jigsaw again, she looks everywhere in the room and finds a microcassette recorder. She plays it. They are informed that they have been poisoned by a slow nerve agent and the antidotes are everywhere in the house. One is in the safe in their room but they need to find a combination of numbers in order to open the safe. The combination is said to be in the back of their minds and the order, in which they have to be programmed in, is found over the rainbow. Besides the tape, the prisoners also find a key and a warning message, which tells them not to use the key to open the door of the room. Xavier refuses to heed the warning and uses the key, thereby causing Gus to be shot by a booby trap connected to the lock. Following his death, the group makes their way to the basement, where another tape reveals that Obi helped Jigsaw to abduct the others. Pressured by Xavier, Obi crawls into a furnace to retrieve 2 of the antidotes, but inadvertently activates the oven and is burned alive. During their search of the house, the victims discuss the various connections between them and eventually determine that they have all been to jail, with the exception of Daniel. As the remaining prisoners continue to search the house, Jonas leads them to another room upstairs. Another tape tells them that the next antidote is hidden behind a steel door and the key to open it lies somewhere in a pit filled with thousands of used syringes. This test is meant for Xavier, who is a drug dealer. However, instead of accomplishing his task himself, he throws Amanda into the pit. While she manages to obtain the key, Xavier fails to unlock the door in time and subsequently abandons the group out of frustration. Meanwhile, John passes the 2 hours with both idle and cryptic conversation with an increasingly frustrated Erik. He eventually talks about his cancer diagnosis and his failed suicide attempt where he survived and found a new appreciation for his life. As he explains his moral ideals to Erik, the tech team finally arrives. At Carey's suggestion, Erik tries to provoke John by destroying several of his documents and sketches around the area. John, however, remains barely impressed and reveals that all of the victims in the house, except for Daniel, have all been innocently framed by Erik for various crimes they didn't commit. Furthermore, he warns him that Daniel's life will be endangered once the other prisoners learn about his connection to Erik. In the house, Xavier returns to the first room where they initially woke up and discovers a colored number written in the back of Gus' neck. Thereby, he realizes that each one of them has one number of the combination to the safe written on their necks. Desperate to get his hands on the antidote, he kills Jonas in a fight and begins to hunt down the others. Meanwhile, Laura succumbs to the nerve agent, having been more affected than the others. Additionally, Amanda and Addison both abandon Daniel after finding a photo of Daniel and Erik. Amanda, however, returns after finding Jonas' body. As the 2 of them try to find a place to hide from Xavier, Addison finds a room with another antidote located inside a glass box. However, as she puts her hand through a hole in the box to grab it, her arms are trapped in the razor blade-lined sockets. Moments later, Xavier finds her, but leaves her to die after reading her number. Amanda and Daniel return to the first room, running away from Xavier. They try to block the door with a baseball bat. Amanda finds a hidden tunnel, which leads them to the dilapidated bathroom from the first film, which still contains the severed foot of Dr. Lawrence Gordon and the decomposing bodies of Adam Stanheidt and Zepp Hindle. Weakened by the gas, Daniel collapses, moments before Xavier finds them. Amanda points out that he cannot read his own number in an attempt to prevent him from hurting them, but Xavier cuts the skin from his neck. Afterwards, he approached them to obtain their numbers. However, Daniel, who has simply staged his collapse, slashes his throat with a hacksaw. At the Wilson steel plant, Erik brutally assaults John after witnessing Xavier's pursuit of Daniel and forces him to take him to the house. John agrees to do so, but demands to go there alone with Erik. The area they were in turns out to be a freight elevator, which they use to leave the factory. At the same time, the tech team traces the video feed to another house. However, as Rigg and his men arrive there, they realize that they had merely watched a recording of the game the entire time, while the game itself had already been over before their raid on Jigsaw's hideout. Just as they realize Jigsaw's deception, the time expires and a large safe opens at the Wilson steel plant. Thereby, Carrie finds Daniel, who has been trapped inside the safe the entire time. Meanwhile, Matthews enters the house that Jigsaw led him to alone and eventually finds the bathroom. Once in there, he is attacked by a person wearing a pig mask and knocked unconscious. When he wakes, he finds himself shackled to a pipe. A tape recorder plays a message from Amanda that reveals that she is Jigsaw's accomplice and that she intends to continue the killer's work after he eventually dies from cancer. As the tape ends, Amanda appears in the doorway and says game over before sealing the door, leaving Matthews to die. Thanks for watching and like and subscribe to watch more videos like this.